United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Begin the meeting with a moment of silence. And as we do, if you keep in your thoughts and prayers the family of Robert Harris. It's Lieutenant Robert Harris, retired firefighter. He retired in 1998. He died on Sunday. There are services being held on Friday the 14th from 4 to 7 at Blanchard's. We just keep his family in your thoughts, please. This meeting's being recorded and broadcast live on Comcast Channel 20 TV. Is there a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to accept correspondence in the read file?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have two items of business basically this evening to conduct interviews, final interviews for the position of Assistant Town Administrator, and we have, as you all know, we have three candidates that are going to be interviewed tonight. And then we'll discuss the candidates afterwards and hopefully come to a decision. Also, once that is over, we will have an update from on COVID-19 from the Board of Health, you all have a memorandum regarding changes that they would like to see, actions they would like to see. So, if we could bring in Jacob Dodge, the first candidate.
You got a White Claw over there?
What's that?
White Claw?
Good evening, Jake.
Good evening.
Jake, as you know, we're having three interviews tonight, three finalists for the position of Assistant Town Administrator. Brought in with bells. We hope to come to a decision tonight after we've talked to you all. For those out there in the viewing audience, we had over 90 candidates for the position. We narrowed that down to a subcommittee narrowed that down to 8 people. And there are 3 left. Jake is one of them, the first one to be interviewed tonight. And we'll have an opportunity to ask Jake questions. Justin and Lincoln and I have already interviewed Jake. But I'd like to start off the interview with asking you roughly the same question I asked you the first time at the preliminary interviews, Jake.
Sure.
If you could basically introduce yourselves to the board. Something about your work history, what you've been doing. And I'd like you to concentrate on why you're interested in applying for this particular job now, a job as Assistant Town Administrator, and why Whitman? Why the Assistant Town Administrator's job in Whitman? And as you're doing that, you can let us know why you think that you're the person that we should consider the most seriously.
All right, well, again, thank you very much. Like you just said, I know that there were many candidates who put in for this position, and just to be here tonight and be one of the final 3 who are interviewing for it is really an honor, and I really do appreciate it. And I understand the weight of the decision that you all have here tonight, and how the town is going to proceed moving forward is going to be greatly hinged upon this position and how it plays into the town. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jacob Dodge. I've been a resident of the town of Whitman on and off pretty much my entire life. I grew up here as a very small child. My grandfather was Al Clayton. He ran Clayton Farms, the convenience store on Route 58. So I spent most of my childhood in Clayton's Farm. So if you were ever in there and there was a young boy running around the store, that was very likely me. As far as my town history goes, work-wise, I worked for the town Whitman Police Department For off and on, I was an auxiliary officer for about 12 years, I believe 12 years, and then I was a reserve officer for about another 2. In addition to that, I also serve on 2 town boards, the Conservation Commission and more recently the Community Preservation Commission. Those is something that I'm very proud of. I think that it is part of, kind of tying into why I'm interested in this position, why the town of Whitman. I'm a big proponent of think globally, act locally. I think that one of the big things that you can do to further, your own community is to focus on your community, is to, identify the problems within your own community and start working on those. I know that we all know the issues that are facing the country and the world at large right now, and it can be a bit overwhelming at times. So I think being able to take a step back and work in your own community and focus on problems that the people that you that you love, that you have spent your entire life with, those are the people that you want to be able to take care of in the end, and those are the people that you want to, there's a reason for that word community. Whitman is very much one of those community-centered towns, and I believe that Whitman, coming out of the pandemic, has a unique opportunity. We're one of those towns where we still have that small town aesthetic and feel and appeal, as well as we have a great center of commerce, the center of town, as well as, I think one of the things going forward that we want to do in the town is to attract more business and stimulate the economy coming out of the pandemic. What I think prepared me the most for this position is the last 3 years, and within the pandemic, I have been working as the captain for the DCR Rangers at the Massachusetts State House. I started at the State House about 3 years ago, 3 years coming up in April. I started as a ranger. I worked fairly quickly into a lieutenant position, where my focus was on redeveloping and redesigning the training program for the Rangers at the State House. I developed an 80-hour training program that is currently the training program that is in use for all of the Rangers who go through the State House. We have approximately 36 people that I oversee on the day-to-day operations of the State House. I spend most of my time doing operations, logistics, and long-term strategic planning. There's a lot to be done at the State House on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of what I'm doing is liaisoning with other agencies, the Senate, the House, the Governor's Office, as well as the state police, and the several different state police units within the building. So the majority of the day-to-day operations has fallen to my lap, and that includes during the pandemic. A lot of that has become, because of kind of forced by the pandemic, a lot of that has become HR type things that I do now as part of my job. I do all the onboarding and offboarding, the EPRSs, which are the basically how we evaluate our employees and how we plan our I kind of do strategic planning with them for what their plan's going to be and building them up. That's really one of my main focuses over the last few years, is trying to take the people who I have and mentor them and kind of point them in the right direction and push them, I think where they need to be, maybe a little bit out of their comfort zone, promote people into different positions and things like that. As well as those HR responsibilities, also it's become kind of a need to get into a little bit of like helping with benefits. I do payroll, so I'm kind of, think of it a little bit like a jack of all trades. I'm kind of whatever I need to be in the moment, and I think that that's very applicable to this position. I think that this position wears a lot of hats. There's a lot of different things that are kind of expected within it, and I think that's something I'm very good at. I think I have the ability to adapt to different situations very easily.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't know if you want to. I can start. Jake, good to see you again.
You as well, sir.
A couple of different questions for you this time. So with the HR component of the job that we have in mind taken into consideration, we've seen a wave of turnover in municipal government lately. It's been largely retirements in Whitman, but that means that there is a whole new generation of new recruits coming in. What do you see as a challenge in recruiting the next generation of municipal employees?
So, in general right now, I think the government and different government entities are a little bit under the microscope. Nobody wants to get into this job just because of, things that they've seen in different horror stories that they've heard on the news, and because of the current, the state of affairs, the way things are right now. So I think first and foremost, anybody who we are trying to recruit talent-wise, that's going to be the challenge, is people have the opportunity to go elsewhere now. Different, the internet changed a lot of things as far as jobs go. People are always kind of looking for that newer, that bigger, that better thing. With this position, I think one of our biggest things would be how do we advertise? How do we change how we're advertising our positions. Are we using, the most up-to-date methods to, not only post our positions, but are we also going out there and scouting different talent? Are we using, different tools like LinkedIn to find the best candidates for the positions that we have? And then once we have them here, how are we retaining them? What are we doing to give them a sense of purpose in their position and, give them whatever incentives that it takes to keep that talent within the town? And I think that's the biggest issue right now for government is maintaining and keeping that talent.
Okay, good answer.
Thank you.
How would you define a successful relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the Assistant Town Administrator?
So I think that is basically, it comes down to communication. I think communication is the biggest asset that I have in my resume. In the different positions that I've held, both at MCPHS University as a sergeant there and as the captain at the State House currently, one of the things that I've worked on is developing relationships. And I think that is the key to any successful business partnership, is that you have that working relationship together where you feel comfortable going to each other, you feel comfortable talking about these issues, and people feel comfortable talking to you, and they know that you're going to be reasonable, you're going to listen to them, and that you're going to try to come to whatever compromise is going to be in the best interest of the town at the end of the day.
All right. And I'm asking the same questions to all the candidates, just
Sure.
say that. So this one will be a little more open-ended for you. Talk about something that you consider a municipal best practice today.
So municipal best practice, I would have to say the biggest thing is transparency. Transparency in state government is probably, key to, that's the key to everything. It's the public trust is really of the utmost importance, especially in a position like this. They want to know that you're being, fiscally responsible with their money, that you're making, decisions not only based off of what's happening in the town right now, but also what's going to be happening in the town 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and that long-term strategic planning is behind it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Dan, Brian, Randy?
Chubb, Jake, I would say Carl kind of took care of the first half of this question, but what specific strengths do you think you'd bring right to the assistant town administrator's role? And the follow-up to that would be, where do you see a challenge lying in the learning curve?
So I think my biggest strength right now would be the fact that I do, I'm on a couple of the town boards, so I know some of the folks on those town boards, and I know part of this is kind of acting as that liaison. So I think I have a little bit of a leg up, maybe on the other candidates in the fact that I know a good amount of people, I know a good amount of the players within the town already, and I know what's going on in the town. I try to be involved in the town activities. Since my daughter was, very young, we've always tried to be part of the PTO. We've always tried to get involved in whatever way that we can so that we know what's going on in and around the town. The one thing that I would say where my strength doesn't lie, and it came up within the first interview, is grant writing. So after the first interview, I was very, I'm still very excited about the opportunity for this position. So the first thing that I did, leaving that and knowing that would be a deficiency, is I went online and I found a remote learning certification from UMass Boston taught by an MIT professor on grant writing A to Z. So given this position, that would be the first thing I do. It starts in February, and that would be something that I would definitely want to get ahead on, because if I'm going to be successful in this position, I want to make sure that I'm very well rounded and I know everything that I need to know.
Was it?
While these other guys are thinking, I have another question for you, Jake. Some people think that there's a distinction between management and leadership. It's two different skill sets. To the extent that there are people that believe that you can't be one and be the other at the same time. It's very rare to find somebody who can both manage and lead at the same time as a same skill set. And I've mentioned this before. I've known people who, known really good leaders who couldn't manage a two-car funeral procession. And I've known some excellent managers who couldn't lead a pack of hungry dogs to meet. But I'm not sure that that's always the case, because I think an administrator, and this is an assistant town administrator's job, an administrator has to actually do both. Can you talk a little bit about what I'm talking about, the distinction between management and leadership?
Sure. So one of the things I'm most proud of in my current position as the captain at the State House is that I really do feel that the rangers who work under me, they they really make me feel wanted as a manager and as a leader. And that's one of the things that I've always been a proponent of is leaders eat last. The thing that you want to do is take care of the people who are working for you first, who you're working with first, and then you get a bite at the table afterwards. Very recently, within the last 6 months, I took an executive leadership course through the FBI LEADER program, and I think that it really broadened my horizons a little bit on leadership as a whole, and what exactly it means to be a leader. Again, like you said, being a leader and a manager, two very different things. You can manage people, but you have to find that balance, and I think that balance is the most important thing. Right now, I oversee a lot of folks, and I'm in charge of discipline as well as and finding that balance. One of the things I also did was update and institute a ranger recognition program. So it's finding that balance between recognizing the good acts, the things that are going well, and not always just being there, with the stick rather than the carrot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go next. Okay. It seems that most of your career has been in law enforcement. And I know where you're coming on because I was law enforcement in the town of Kingston back in the 60s. So I know where you're coming from. But I guess on your other experiences where you've just been strictly but with law enforcement, where do you think you have, or what have you grasped for expertise in transferring from law enforcement into running a town, or at least participating in running a town?
I think the biggest thing that I took away from law enforcement, my time in law enforcement, is how to talk to people, is how to empathize with them, is how to listen to them. One of the biggest things that I think you can do in this position specifically is listen to people. Actually take the time. Don't be formulating in your head whatever the next question it is that you're going to ask. You're actually taking the time to listen to them, hear what's coming out of their mouth, try to empathize with them, even if you can't maybe understand where they're coming from because you come from a different socioeconomic background, different cultural background. You can still empathize with that person, try to put yourself in their shoes. One of the best things that, and I guess I'll put a little kudos out there to, Deputy Chief Bombardier. He was my first training officer, and one of the things he taught me going right out of the gate is treat everybody like it's your grandmother, like it's your grandfather, it's your mother, it's your daughter. These are people that you live in the town with. These are the people that are going to take care of you if something happens to you. Take care of them in whatever way you can.
Okay. And first of all, let me just say, I moved here in '77. I loved Clayton.
You didn't?
I needed something, it was Clayton.
They always had it.
I mean, no matter what I needed, it was there. And we had a moment of silence when it was gone.
And if they didn't have it, they'd get it for you.
I know. All right, that being said, I guess what I'm looking to do is, if you're chosen as our assistant town administrator, where do you look, or what do you think you'll be looking for in the future? I mean, Lincoln's our town administrator now. Someday he's going to retire, right? Or whatever. So are you looking to step into that position's shoes in the future?
Yes, sir. And so in this role, I am, I'm getting to my late 30s now at this point. So I am looking for a position that this is going to be the position that I'm growing old with. And moving up in that position, if the time came where, Lincoln moved on to greener pastures, went somewhere else, had another opportunity come up, or in the event that, I'm around long enough for Lincoln to retire, I would be looking to move into that position eventually at some point, yes.
I'm trying to think. I had something else on my mind. If I remember.
You can come back, Jim.
Yeah.
I agree with you about Clayton's. If they didn't have it, you didn't need it.
Sign they actually have.
Yes, I know it.
Yeah. So, a couple of easy questions. When you were overseeing these, or are overseeing these officers, they're in a union, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
And were you in the union?
I am in the union, yes, sir.
Okay. Because my question was how confident you are in union negotiations and how you feel about that management-union relationship.
I'm very comfortable working within a union, both as a member, and I was also the acting chief at the State House for 6 months during the height of the pandemic and the riots. So a lot of that was working, I was removed from the union for a short time while I was in the acting chief position, and a lot of that was working directly with our union representatives to make sure that any policy that we were instating, any procedures that were forthcoming, again, like I said before, communication is really the key, making sure that those lines of communication stay open. Yes, very comfortable working within a union.
Good. And my last question, and most everybody's touched on it already, about, your resume is mostly public safety. And quite honestly, I believe it might be a bit of a stretch going from public safety into this type of management position. So I know you've touched on it here and there about it, but what would you say to make me believe that that transition could happen?
Sure, and I 100% understand looking at a resume for an assistant town administrative position, somebody who has never really held a position like that before, and has, public safety, security, law enforcement and as their background. I can see where the concerns would be. For me, it's not a weakness, it's a strength. I think that coming from public safety, it's taught me a lot about crisis management. It's taught me a lot about how to remain calm under pressure. It's taught me a lot about doing the right thing, having that integrity. Again, when no one's watching, these are the positions, the assistant town administrator, these positions, very much are things that the community is putting a lot of trust in you with. So having that integrity, no matter what the situation is, no matter what if it benefits me or if it's beneficial for the town, being able to be that impartial person, I've always found that, having that public safety background for me has given me that ability to not only work with people, but in a way where that communication is there and, everybody leaves the table feeling like they were heard and some type of compromise was reached.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've sort of ticked off a couple of things. You've ticked off experience in HR, and you're going to be taking grant writing education, grant writing experience. You've had leadership training. Have you had any experience with procurement? If you were to receive the job and next week Lincoln says, I need you to be the procurer for the town of Whitman, what would you do?
For me, procurement is something that I have been getting a quick tutorial in how state government does procurement and doing requests, having to have that request out for a certain amount of time, having to wait for feedback from the different vendors who are getting back to you, and then doing the pricing, and then going through POs and the whole process that comes along doing that for state government. I feel like I'd be somebody who could very easily slide into that role, and if need be, and I feel like that is very likely going to be the case at some point, that Lincoln may come to me and say, I have XYZ on my plate, I might need you to step into this role, I might need you to become this, and I feel, again, that's another place that law enforcement has prepared me. You never really know what you're going to be doing that day, so I can switch gears very quickly and become kind of whatever is needed at the time to be the assistant.
Okay, thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
No, I remember the question I was going to ask. Knowing in the position of either town administrator or assistant town administrator, there's always projects that come before us, right? They're either the day-to-day operation, that things that need to get done, whether if Lincoln's on vacation and something comes down and needs to be read, approved of, and signed so we can get things done, or there's long-term projects that sometimes the town administrator's hands are so full that they get turned around. And I'm thinking mostly like we have like an old elementary school that's been sitting around. We have, a couple of buildings that have been around. We don't know what we're going to do with it. We get the old police station. Although Lincoln's been looking at it and getting it done, sometimes one person has got this much to do, and they only have time to do this much. And that's where the assistant steps in. How do you see yourself in a follow-through role as far as getting things done? If she's on vacation, getting the day-to-day operation and understanding what needs to get done today and not tomorrow to run the town, whether it's signing documents or approving certain things, and what things need to get done in the process in the long run, is solving problems that have been on the books for too long.
Absolutely. And so in this role, I would imagine that I'm going to have to do a lot of kind of intuitive work as well, as far as not only balancing the day-to-day operations, the projects need to be done right now, but also, like I said earlier, the long-term strategic planning. What are we going to be looking at 5 years from now? And then how are the decisions that we make today going to change those decisions 5 years down the line? How is that going to affect, where we can spend this money or how much money can be spent, depending on the decisions we make now. So I think right now, what the chain of command I follow right now is I do directly report to the chief ranger at the State House. The chief there could tell you that I am very much somebody who takes initiative on projects. I see a need, I see something that needs to be done. I'll go and do the research for it. I'll go and find out everything I can about the topic, and then I'll bring it back, and I will try to come back with a solution, not a problem. So in that situation, I would try to go back to Lincoln and already have something, an idea in mind, present it to him, and then at that point I feel like we could have that relationship where we talk things out. He might see things that I don't see, I might see things that he doesn't see, and we would have that kind of symbiotic relationship where we're working with each other and making each other better. We're learning from each other constantly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Do you have any questions of us, Jake?
Just one, if chosen the position, I'm not sure if you folks make a decision tonight, but what would be the anticipated start date that you'll be looking to backfill the position?
Yesterday?
Yeah, about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, maybe. Lincoln, do you have any?
Yeah, I can provide some feedback on that. So assuming the board makes a decision this evening, we'd obviously want to have a conversation about terms of employment. But I would think certainly at the latest by the beginning of February would be my expectation.
And then the last question I have is just accepting the position right now, what would be the top conversation? What would be the top thing that's on the agenda as far as the assistant town administrator position would be focusing on initially?
I'm happy to answer that. So I think primarily probably the thing right in front of us that I simply haven't had time to get to would be to draft a policy on the use of town properties and buildings, and following through with a pile of research about what the current legal authorities are, but drafting a current policy, vetting it with myself, and then working with the Board of Selectmen for their review and approval.
Thank you.
I think that may be it. Jake?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your
Jake.
time.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Do you have the job posting?
You know,
Yeah, can you get that for us? Thanks.
We have 15 minutes until the next interview. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything prohibiting us from.
I just wanted to look at the job posting. Does anybody have it?
I do not.
I can make copies of it right now.
Yeah. Can you get it for me? Thank you.
You may have sent it out with the agenda the first time we posted this, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
I didn't see it in any of the emails that were sent to us, just
No, I
the
didn't.
resumes.
I couldn't find it either.
nippy day today.
Oh, it's really cold.
It's the first time I've worn this heavy jacket in a long time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do the other candidates know how to get in the building?
They do.
Okay.
Was James out there?
Not yet. Yeah. See him shortly.
Michael's going to look, but. Yeah, we'll search more.
Trying to get in.
Yeah, the clerk's office, just let me know that somebody's out there tugging on doors.
Oh,
Lincoln said he had
Is that the handicap door?
candidates to come in the lower door.
Yeah,
And he's going the front door?
we were going to the side door, the other side door.
Which side door did he tell him to come in?
I imagine the
I
handicap
assumed
door,
that one.
but
I came in that door and I think it was locked.
It was unlocked?
I think it was locked.
Really?
Well, I used the card and it clicked open, so it sounded like it was locked. But maybe it does that anyway, I don't know.
first
Always
test.
try before you pry.
Yeah.
James Kelly Esquire, he's a lawyer. Before what happened.
Was the next gentleman part of the town administrator selection?
For the,
Lincoln's job. Oh. His resume looks familiar to me.
was it? I don't know.
Because I remember the towns, Millbury, Sterling.
No, it was a different,
It was a different.
it was Milford, not Millbury. I made the same mistake and
Okay.
I pressed on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because it clicked with me and I'm like,
yeah,
I've seen this before.
yeah. He was a finalist for the town administrator Carver, that went to Rick LaFond, who's now out.
They're looking again?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, were the doors locked?
It turns out they weren't. It was very, very explicit, but that they should be unlocked when I fix it right.
Yeah, might as well bring him in.
Still in time.
Yeah. First challenge. Get to the interview.
Evening, James.
Yep.
Either microphone?
Yeah,
Yes.
probably.
Is it green light
Sit-
on either one of them?
Sit right in the middle.
Green
No,
lights on both.
And they're both on.
You're in stereo.
Dolby surround.
yeah, surround sound. Yeah. James, welcome. Board,
Thank you.
this is James Kelly. He's one of our three, as you know, he's one of our three finalists for the Assistant Town Administrator's position. As you all know, there were over 90 applicants, and we had whittled, Justin and Lincoln and I had whittled that down to 8, and we interviewed 8 people, and there are 3 left, and James is one of them. Hopefully tonight, after we talk to you, and we've talked to one candidate already, we'll talk to one after you, we may be making a decision tonight. And after that, Lincoln would then, if you're the successful candidate, Lincoln would get in touch with you and talk about contracts and starting dates and things like that. I'm going to start off the questioning with a question that's almost exactly like the question I asked you at the other interview. And that is if you could introduce yourself to the board, giving us something about your history, concentrating on basically on why this job as assistant town administrator now, and why in Whitman, and why you think that we should hire you.
Well, thank you for inviting me in for the interview. My name is Jamie Kelly. I live in Norton, which is right around the corner, so to speak, from Whitman. It is one of the reasons I applied for this job was the fact that a number of my prior jobs, I've had a commute of over an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. And so a commute right around 30 minutes seems great to me. Beyond that, I have the education, the knowledge, and the experience to be very successful in this position for your town. I am a professional in human resources prior to taking on various management roles. I am an attorney. I have not actually practiced law for a long time. For 15 years, I was the vice chair of the chair of the State Labor Board and did contract mediations and grievance arbitrations across the state. Not only was I the manager at a commissioner level of the board, but I carried my own caseload. In addition, I am I definitely am an expert in labor relations. I have negotiated various contracts with police, fire, town hall units, support units, DPW. I'm very familiar with all of the players involved in the unions hierarchy that would be negotiating from the other side of the table, and all of their attorneys. I have prepared numerous budgets. During COVID, I had to estimate revenues, prepare a budget, and then totally redo the budget because of changes. And when it was presented to town meeting, I was very pleased and proud that there was not one hold on any item. We had presented it in numerous meetings, the superintendent of schools and myself, to the town, and I think we did very well convincing them that this was the way we had to go in light of the COVID. I was town manager during COVID, had to prepare the town hall. I consider myself to be very lucky that I was supported by a finance committee who understood the value of technology, and we were able to buy laptops and docking stations for all of town employees, and we were able to have the folks we needed in town hall to be in town hall, and then for safety reasons have all of the employees that did not actually need to be in town hall to work remotely, and it was very successful. I'm trying to think if I spoke too much and went on a little bit with your question.
No, fine, good detail. Anyone else? Other people have questions. I know you all do.
Yeah.
And I have a couple that I'll ask later.
All right,
Jamie, good to see you again.
good to see you.
Welcome back. Something that you've experienced as working in HR in the past, we've been seeing a wave of turnover in municipal government lately. What do you see as a challenge recruiting the next generation of municipal employees?
I think the biggest challenge is convincing the next wave of employees, as you say, that this is a real positive career path, and it is a rewarding career. I've been in public service most of my life. I enjoy it. I know that there are a few young people that I've mentored that continued on in public service, and they are rising up to the director or assistant town manager positions. And I think part of the issue we have to convey is for all of public service is that this is your government and you've got to be part of it, whether you're a volunteer or you're a professional working for a municipality or a governmental entity. And it's a little bit of patriotism. It's a little bit of the fact that it's, in my view, a really good job. You won't get rich, but if you do it right, you have people that appreciate you.
Thanks. How would you define a successful relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the Assistant Town Administrator?
Well, I think the Assistant Town Administrator would owe the Board of Selectmen a loyalty, integrity, and transparency. And through the town administrator, who is the board's agent, would be someone who supports their efforts in making the town better.
And my last question, a little more open-ended for you. Just talk about something that you consider a municipal best practice today.
I consider the making sure all meetings are open, and so using social media, if folks have to participate remotely, using technology, and open it up. The more you're involving people, the better you are.
Thank you.
Hi, Jim, Randy Lamattina. My one question is, what excited you to apply for Whitman? And what strengths do you think you would bring, and where might you see a challenge in the transition to Whitman's municipal government?
Well, the challenge whenever you go into a new position is to learn what's expected of you and to learn what actually is going on the ground, and to deal with the goals and the vision of the existing government. As far as I'm sorry, what was the other part?
I mean, I guess sort of list of all your qualifications, where do you see yourself being the strongest?
Well, HR and labor relations, I'm extremely strong. Finance, I'm strong. And there are some things that don't jump out in the resume. For example, in my own town, I was chair of the planning board. And at that time, we lost our town planner. And so I was able to step up and do the job of making sure there were no constructive approvals, that we were able to schedule all the hearings, and everyone on the board had the information they needed to make an informed decision. And then I think another strength is same type of strength is the adaptability, because when you see it and what I did during COVID and how I adapted and kept Millbury's town government going and successfully did it, and I think that adaptability is something that is a strength that I could bring to Whitman.
Thank you.
Dan?
Next. Okay, my name's Dan Salvucci, Vice Chair of the board here. I guess a lot of the questions have been answered, but one of the questions, with all your job experiences in the different towns, what makes you think you're probably the best candidate for the opposition?
Well, I'll say I'm a very, very good candidate for this position. I can't say that I'd be the best. I think that would be a little ego on my part.
Egos doesn't bother me at all.
But I've got, as I said, I've got the education, I've got the knowledge, I've got the experience. I've performed well in other places to the point where I've been trusted by other boards in other towns to do a number of very important projects. I was first chair in all of the negotiations in Sterling and in Millbury, and for most of the negotiations in Stoughton. So the board not only trusted me to do the negotiations, but in most cases we did not have town council there.
How do you consider yourself a people person?
Yes.
As far as dealing with all the department heads and employees of the town and in different buildings and in this building?
I am a great believer in collaboration and team building. I am a trainer in interest-based bargaining, which is also called getting to yes or collaborative bargaining. And I find that is the results you get from that when everybody's involved and they're all working together are a lot better than the results you get from just imposing something.
Okay, being the assistant town administrator, there's a lot of issues. There are daily issues, some weekly issues, and monthly issues, and yearly issues. We have some issues around town, old town buildings that need to be addressed. The job is this much. I mean, Lincoln only can get this much done. That's why we need a new, assistant. I mean, you can't get it all done. So, he may throw some things that, into your pocket saying, we have like an old middle school that we need to think about what we're going to do with. We got a back part of the old police station in this building that we may have to look at and do something about it. I guess what is your thought on looking at different properties that the town owns or buildings that the research and looking at them, making sure that the town's is safe as far as legal aspects of taking, doing something with that building, and solving the issue of getting something done and not just leaving the building to sit there and disintegrate.
Well, first of all, in a previous town, their DPW barn was very out of date. And so we had...
Hours.
So we had to avoid a number of OSHA problems, and I was able to spearhead that and get that done. I'll give you another example. In one town, we had a mansion. The town owned a historic mansion that was an event venue for marriages, corporate meetings, etc. However, on another floor, the historical commission was in residence, and it was really storage of all their historical artifacts. There was a school that was no longer in use in the town that we were then going to convert and put the historical society, the historical commission, the Council on Arts, and some of the other entities in that retrofitted school, and then be able to use more space in the event venue for what it was supposed to be for. And we were halfway through that when I left Millbury. I've been involved in the building of schools. In Millbury, we started the planning stage for a new fire station, and I was part of the committee for that. I'm smart enough to know if they're planning a fire station or a police station, the chiefs are the chair of that committee.
No smiling, Tim. I can't see you behind your mask, but I know you are. There you go. I guess my last question is, where do you see yourself in, say, 3 to 5 years? Lincoln, he's a new town administrator, and I don't expect him to be going anywhere soon, but down the line, he's either gonna, retire or what, or whatever he wants to do if he wants to move on. Do you see yourself moving into that position?
I know when we had our original meeting, I asked whether you could contract a 3-year or a 5-year contract. I'd be looking for a 5-year, but I understand it's a 3-year.
Normally, yeah.
That you hadn't accepted the new provisions. But after 5 years, I don't know. I could be retired. I could be somewhere else. But I will tell you that I've been around municipal government a long time compared to some others. And the shelf life right now of a town administrator, town manager is 3 to 4.5 years. And I'm somewhat of an academic, and being in HR, I look at stuff like that.
Thank you. That's it.
Welcome, Mr. Kelly. My name is Brian Bezanson. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I am really impressed with your resume, so I want to congratulate you on that. It's pretty impressive.
I left some stuff out, too.
Wow. Well, thank you for the brevity. I would like to know, obviously you have great expertise in negotiations. And so what I would like to know, in your opinion, is with COVID and 2.5 and everything coming in at once, what do you think is the biggest challenge going forward when it comes to negotiating between the municipal government and unions?
In general, I would say plan design for health insurance. In previous towns, I've negotiated into the contracts a employee contribution for OPEB, a minor contribution, but it was a contribution, which the bond rating agencies really looked.
I would imagine.
I think you've got an issue with in certain contracts with when you talk about recruiting. DPW, if you can recruit to get someone with a CDL, you're lucky. If you need someone with a hoisting license, you better be real lucky. And if you need someone with any other credentials beyond that, you need to have a miracle. Because recruiting people with the specific skill sets you need and is difficult. And as you were intimating, it's tough to get some young people involved. And I know in a couple towns we were lucky in having veterans come back that had training as far as EMTs and stuff like that. But I would say it's going to be difficult for a number of years.
Well, thank you. Clearly, you have an enormous amount of municipal experience. So I would like to have you give me one highlight on that. What is your proudest moment of all that work? Because there's quite a bit there.
Keeping all of the employees in Millbury safe during COVID.
Good answer. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? I'd like to ask you to talk about the relationship between management and leadership for a few minutes. There are some people that think that those are two entirely different skill sets. To be a manager, you have to have, basically you work with your head down. You have to keep your eye on details. Leaders, however, have to keep their head up. They have to be able to see what's coming. They have to have some sort of vision. Some people think you can't do both. I'd like to have your thoughts on that. For example, as I mentioned to the last candidate, I've known some leaders that couldn't lead a two-car funeral procession, and I've known some managers that couldn't lead a pack of hungry dogs to meat. However, I've known some people that really understand that the word administrator could be the word that combines the two, because in Latin the administration comes from service. It's to serve. Administrare is to serve. Could you talk a little bit about this relationship between being a manager and being a leader? And
I think you can be both.
okay.
As I said, I believe in team building and using teams. I know that I don't know everything, but there's usually someone you work with who knows what you need at that particular time. And if you're all working together as a team and you have the leader define the vision and the goals, you can have a whole bunch of managers who are able to then deal with the nuts and bolts to get the job done.
Good. A person that I'm familiar with once described it as, if I have to put my glasses on, leading is bringing people and vision together for the good of both. And that's basically, I think, what you just said. Anyone else have any other questions?
Could I ask who said that?
Yeah, a guy by the name of Hockaday. Dr. Hockaday. He's an educator. And
It's a good quote.
yeah, it's I was going to say myself, because I had also, I wrote at one point, to bring human and material resource together to accomplish institutional goals is what it's about. So this whole interview process has gotten me to look back at some of the things that I've written and that I've read, and so that came out of that. There's a professor at the University of Texas by the name of John Roosh. He teaches a course in community college leadership, and he had a quote that educators live in the past, managers live in the present, and leaders live in the future, which I always kind of liked. But anybody else have any other questions?
Maybe he does.
Did we talk about Lafayette when you were interviewed before?
And Lehigh?
Yeah. I just couldn't remember if we had done that.
Don't hold it against me.
No, I'm not. Did you come from Pennsylvania? Did you come from that area?
No, but I lived there in Easton 4 years after I graduated.
Yeah, I lived in Allentown for 6 years while I was going to grad school down at
I really enjoyed it down there. It's changed.
I wanted to go back for a long time. You know, I moved up here right after that, and then I wanted to go back and I grew up around here. But I liked that area too, but it is a strange area.
I went back, actually I was at a conference in Philadelphia and I took my kids and we drove back. And we went through Bethlehem and Easton, and this was after Bethlehem Steel had closed down and been dismantled.
Yeah.
And I was shocked at how different the cities were. The countryside is still beautiful, but
Right.
the cities back then were shell-shocked.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, we went back. My wife and I went back a couple of years ago. This is where my daughter was born. She was born in Bethlehem, which is kind of neat. Anyway, do you have any questions of us?
No, I think in our first meeting, we dealt with a number of things.
Okay, great.
And I appreciate being invited in, and I know you gentlemen have a difficult job here doing this. I've done management interviews for a number of positions, and by the time you get to this level, you usually are trying to figure out the best person for the job, and I'm confident I am a very good person for this job, and I wish you well and good luck in getting the best candidate in here.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully it will warm up a little bit.
It'd get hot in here later.
Yeah, gee, thanks, Randy.
That's why we have the fire chief here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
15 minutes ahead of schedule, both of them.
we got 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Do we want to take a 15-minute recess to
Yeah, we could.
stretch?
Stretch?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Make a motion?
Second?
All those in favor of taking a 15-minute recess?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, smoke if you got 'em.
Not in the town building, though.
Good evening, Rosaria.
Good evening.
Well, you're the final candidate, so you get to, you're batting cleanup. As I've mentioned to the other candidates and to the audience, is that we had over 90 applicants, and you were one of 8 semifinalists that were interviewed by Justin and Lincoln and myself. And then you made it to the final 3, and that's tonight. We'll have an interview about a half an hour tonight, and let the other board members know something about you. And then hopefully tonight we'll actually have a vote, and we may know who the next assistant town administrator is, pending talks with Lincoln about contract and all of that. So this is it. I'm going to ask you the first question. It'll be similar to the first question that I asked you at the other interview, and that's just introduce yourself to the board. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work history, and concentrating on why this job is interesting to you right now at this particular time in your life. Why this job? Why Whitman? And why you're the best person for the job.
So thank you so much for having me. My name is Rogeria Medeiros-Kowalczykowski. I have been in municipal government for quite some time now. It's a field I actually really love. I love dealing with the public. I love just the municipal part of it, the budgeting, the financing. As far as why I chose Whitman, it's actually a very similar community to the town of Stoughton, which I'm currently working for. It actually reminds me of the town of Stoughton when I started working for the town, which was a little smaller community. We didn't have all the departments that we currently have. So when I started working for the town, we didn't have a facilities department. We didn't have an HR department. We did not have a procurement department. And we did not have a centralized purchasing department. Those functions were primarily handled in the town manager's office with the town manager and myself. The town has since grown quite a bit. We've grown in residency as well as buildings and just capital growth, and business development in town. So we have now full-time departments. I still assist with those departments, but they do have their full-time directors. So that was really one of the reasons that attracted me to Whitman. I'm also looking for some growth as I kind of finish out my municipal career. This position allows me that growth. Originally, I had chosen the path of clerk. I am a certified municipal clerk, something I thought I really enjoyed because I do love dealing with the residents, and that was a position that had a lot of interaction with the residents. I have since started exploring some other growth opportunities, and assistant town managers, assistant administrator roles really fit in line with my current duties, and that's something I'm really looking to do as I finish out my municipal career.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other people?
Yeah, I'll start. It's good to see you again.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back. As you consider some of the HR responsibilities in this role, not just in Whitman, but generally there's been a wave of turnover in municipal government. What do you see as a challenge in recruiting the next generation of municipal employees?
So I think the challenge in the next wave of municipal employees, younger municipal employees, is growth opportunity. I think they're always looking for growth. Sometimes it seems that there is not growth in municipal government. I am here as a proven fact that there is growth in municipal government. It's a great job to be involved in. It's great to be involved in your community. Even if it's not the community you reside in, you get a feel for what it's like to be part of a community and be involved. So I think actually just the fact of my tenure, I think that would be a great mentor for younger candidates, and to know that there is a future in municipal government, and it's a great future. It's a great way to give back to your community.
Thank you. How would you define a successful relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the Assistant Town Administrator?
I think transparency and communication is the best effective way to work with the board as well as the administrator. I think the residents really respect that. I think lots of times they might not be happy with a result or an outcome, but if they realize there's transparency in that answer and the outcome, it just makes things a lot easier. So I think that's very important in municipal government, and just being very transparent and a lot of communication.
Thanks. And my last question for you, a little more open-ended. Can you just talk about something that you consider a municipal best practice today?
Municipal best practice. I think financing. I think it's all about financing and budgeting and looking into the future as to what the town's needs are and how to get there through a budgeting financial aspect.
Thanks.
How are you? Randy LaMattina.
Hi.
My question is, what excited you about the town of Whitman when applying for the assistant town administrator's job, and what would be your strength that you would say your number one strength was that you'd bring to us, and where would you see a challenge may lie?
So not to be repetitive, but basically what brought me to Whitman is, again, the growth opportunity. It's a very similar community, so I think with my resume and my history, I thought it would be something that would work really well for me here. As far as, I'm sorry, can you repeat the second part of your
Just
question?
what could you maybe say might be a challenge?
Okay, so the challenges for me probably would be, and I think I brought this up at the initial interview, would be maybe grant writing. I have been involved in that in the past. Again, this is when I first started working for the town, and we did not have a grant writer, and then we got an intermittent grant writer, and now we have department heads that do their own grant writing. I do assist as far as abstracting some information that they might need and maybe documenting timelines, making sure things get done effectively, but I have not written any grants. I'm always open to learn. I don't think it would be something that would be very difficult, but just to be transparent, I have not, that would be a challenge for me.
Thank you.
A minor challenge.
Next, okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
A couple of questions that I may have. You are now the Assistant Town Administrator in Stoughton?
I am not. We do not have an assistant town administrator. I do a lot of those duties, but I am an assistant to the town manager. So we do
The
not,
Town Manager in Stoughton, right?
yes.
Okay. So it's basically the same. So the roles are basically the same as what you're looking at today here as what you're doing in Stoughton?
Based off of your job description, it was a lot of the duties that I currently do. If you look at my resume and the job description that was posted, it's a lot of what I do. I do the workers' comp for the town. I know that Whitman is unique, that you don't have your own school system. You have a shared school system. We just have one in Stoughton, although we have a Southeastern Regional School. And I am basically the liaison for the school and the town when it comes to workers' comp, insurances for the vehicles, the buildings, so I'm kind of that one person. And a lot of the things that was on your job description is currently what I do. A lot of HR, there's a lot of HR component in my job. And in the past, I have done a lot of the onboarding and the screening. I still sit on screening committees for current employees that we bring on board. But I'm not, in fact, an assistant town administrator. Like I said,
Do you consider yourself a people person?
I think that's probably one of my best skills. I think if you ask anybody, And not to keep referring back to Stoughton, but if you ask anybody in Stoughton about me, that's probably one of the things that you'll find the best trait about me is I'm very interpersonal, and I just love dealing with the public, and I actually think I'm very good at it.
Okay. Also, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? I'm saying Lincoln is our town administrator. He's been on a year. Whether or not he's here for 5, 6, 7 more years or decides to leave tomorrow, it's all up to him. Where do you see yourself? Are you looking to step into his shoes eventually?
If I had to, I could. That is not one of my immediate goals. I'm very happy to come in and work with Mr. Heineman and hope that he outlasts me here and that I would be
Of course
gone
you will,
first, since I am probably closer to retirement than he is. So that's kind of where I see myself, but I wouldn't be opposed to filling in, but that is not a role that I'm currently seeking.
Okay, and one thing, in the position in management, there is a lot of short-term and long-term projects. There are daily things that need to get done on a regular basis for this town to operate, and there are issues where, like I said to the 2 previous people that applied, we have some old buildings, some old school buildings, and some other areas of town that need to be either rejuvenated, to use for something else, or sold, or something, right? But there's a lot of aspects that's just been sitting around, and we need to solve the problem. Do you see yourself taking on a project where you may look into possibly, we have an old elementary school that could be used for something, and if the town has no use for it, whether we sell it or not, I don't know.
I could see that. We have that actually in Stoughton. We recently just repurposed a building that we bought, which was an old bank. We made it our new recreation center, so all the youth recreation activities take place there. I think it would be up to the board and what the board and the administrator's vision is for the buildings. If they're looking to repurpose the building, then we would reach out to communities that have maybe that did similar tasks, and we could, why reinvent the wheel? Just kind of take off from what they did and see if we could make it work that way. And if it's something the board's looking to sell, then that would be obviously the board's decision. But I think repurposing is great. But if there's funds that are needed for something else that the town is looking to build or, rejuvenate, then selling is not a bad option either.
Okay. Thank you for now, yeah.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
As well, thank you.
And congratulations on being one of the finalists.
Thanks so much.
As I look at your resume and I look at our job posting, you could just switch the name and your name back and forth, because it's exactly what's here. So I congratulate you on your resume and your long-term service to one community. I think that's important. So what I'd like to know is if you have ever been involved with any negotiations or sat in with negotiations, or what's your opinion about the management union dichotomy?
So I've never been part of negotiations on the town side. I am on the bargaining team. I am in a unit, so I am on that bargaining team. We have worked well with the town managers in reaching an agreement that's mutual for both sides, as well as a benefit to the town and its employees. So I have no problem working on the other side because I think I've already been part of that. I currently also, I'm actually in the process of doing that now. So in the past, we've had town council do all our contracts. So I actually hold the original contracts. When we have a settled MOA with the unions, those come through me. I incorporate them into the contract, and then I send them off for council for review, just to make sure that I accurately incorporated them in. But I think that's a huge savings to the town, so I do that. Another thing that I had seen on your job description that I'm currently simultaneously working on is our annual report and our annual town meeting. We have an annual town meeting coming up in May. We have an annual report that's due at town meeting as well. So I'm already working with the departments, halfway through the process on the annual report, and just in the beginning stages of the warrant. We actually close our warrant in next week. But I have a draft warrant that the select board and the manager have reviewed, and it's pretty much ready to be turned over to council for some motions and brought back to me for some cleaning up and then off to town meeting.
Good, I appreciate that, thank you. As I look through your resume, you've got a lot of things here for municipal government. If you had to pick one thing that you're most proud of on that, what do you think it would be?
I would say probably my clerk accomplishment. And I only say that because I started as a clerk. I was very young when I started municipal government. I almost did leave municipal government. I'm glad I didn't. And then through the years, as I developed with the town, I decided that a few people had approached me and said, you would be great as a clerk, just your interpersonal skills, your skill set. And so I decided to make myself more appealing, that I would become certified. And I was actually in the process of becoming a certified master clerk when COVID hit. So I'm halfway through the process. But at this point, I think I've chosen a different path. And I'm just going to keep those initials after my name, but I won't be adding the MMC.
Well, that's great, thank you very much, appreciate it.
I've got another thing for you to think about, another question for you to think about. While going through all of these interviews and looking at resumes and all of that, it brought me to do some reading that I hadn't done for a long time. Things that I had studied, things that I had written myself, and things that I had to read at one point. And it has to do with management and leadership and connection between the two. There are some people that believe that managers and leaders are two different animals and that you can't be both. I don't necessarily think that, but I have known, and the other people have heard me say this twice already. I have known leaders who couldn't manage a 2-car funeral procession. I've also known managers who couldn't lead a pack of hungry dogs to meet. However, I really think that there's something else that can go on where people can show both of those skills in the same person at the same time. And I think we call those people administrators. An administrator is the Latin root for the word administration is administrare, which means to serve. I think that's what leaders need to do. They need to serve. Or as somebody put it once, it's, unfortunately I have to take my glasses off. I hate getting old. Leading is bringing people and vision together for the good of both. Leading is bringing people and vision together for the good of both. Or it's helping people and resources come together. Can you talk about this a little bit?
I think it's actually both. Obviously, I think it takes a good leader to manage, but you cannot manage if you don't have a good team to work with. So a good leader is a manager that works well with the team, gives the team the resources that they need to come to the common goal. And so I think they're pretty much intertwined. So it does take a great leader to manage, but once you manage that team, I think it can all work and balance out. So
Okay.
maybe that's the administrator term.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else have any other questions? Do you have any questions of us?
No, I just want to thank everybody for allowing me the opportunity and looking maybe to see when the board would be filling the seat, when they decide, the position, when they decide to do that.
Well, hopefully, we're going to come to a vote tonight. And if we do, then, and if you are the person, you'll receive a call from Lincoln, and you'll sit down and talk about the contract, talk about starting date, what elements would be in your contract, and come to an agreement. So it could happen quickly. Lincoln was asked this question a little while ago about when the person might start, and he's thinking that by the 1st of February, beginning of February.
You don't want to go a year without an assistant, I take it.
He doesn't
You
want to
don't
go
want to
any.
make that year mark.
No.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Well, okay then. Lincoln, do you have a recommendation for us? for us to consider.
Sure, I do. And if I could briefly, on a personal note, notwithstanding Mr. Kelly's comments regarding the 3 to 4 year average of town administrators, I know the most important mentors that I've had in this field and continue to have in this field have much longer longevity, and so I hope and plan to follow their lead, and I know I'm very happy in Whitman, and hope to be able to be here for managing and leading for many years. So just to say that, I know it came up with
Appreciate
a
that.
decent amount in the conversations, and
It's
I
a
wanted
bowling average, that's all.
I wanted to mention my thoughts on that briefly. I thank you for asking regarding my my recommendation. I think I'd say we have 3 really strong candidates, and they all have their own strengths and perhaps weaknesses or areas of opportunity. I would say, echoing Selectman Bizantson's thoughts, I think in many ways Ruggieria's skill set and past match quite precisely in many ways to the job description that we identified as collectively as these are the most important qualities that we want in this person. And I think in doing the reference checks, I think that was obviously, I wanted to hear a second round interview, as we all did, but I think in checking the references, that sort of when it clicked for me in terms of 3 of her 5 identified references were people that she had worked directly for. And we didn't necessarily experience that directly with the other 2 candidates, and that said to me a lot about her ability and her past in serving, and coming back to that idea about service, and that in many ways I think is this role, is service, and the folks that she's worked for directly in the past have identified her as excellent at that. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to share any thoughts?
What's my line or something?
Yeah.
We're all going. Go ahead.
I have thoughts. I didn't know if anyone else. I think we absolutely did have a great pool of candidates, especially the finalists. Why I had asked for the job posting is I kind of used it as my own little personal checklist. For myself, there were 2 candidates that really hit all the qualifications we had put out on the posting. That being said, coming into the night, on paper, I had 1 candidate, and then was kind of blown out of the water, personally, in an interview. I see areas that we could fill some void with Mr. Kelly. I think somebody in planning with that experience is something that we've talked about, and unfortunately with budgeting and to fill that role. It's a super impressive resume, and I think the way he presented himself, I think he needs to have some consideration.
I kind of came in, having met all the candidates before, expecting this to go one way, but I do want to echo what Randy had said. I think that Mr. Kelly could come in and possibly mentor Lincoln on some things. Not a knock on you, more his decades of experience in municipal government. And I think that could be a valuable thing to add. If I may ask, what were his reference checks like? I know you sent us a summary, but general feeling.
I think the general feeling was very positive towards him. If you could hold on just one moment.
Sure.
I did not hear back from two of his references, despite a couple messages left. I think as I said, the two folks, one of the people who he had given as a reference was someone who he had hired and mentored himself, and that was very positive and I think meaningful. Very meaningful to hear that about his sense of integrity, his abilities, and how much she valued that. And then the other person was the chair of a board, independently elected board, who Mr. Kelly had helped to find a director for the library, in that case, in that town, and the work he'd done the very positive work that he'd done in identifying candidates, in running the process through, and coming up with the best candidate. So I think those were both meaningful, especially the latter, in terms of giving some color to his human resources experience. So I guess sort of part of the answer is slightly incomplete. Is part of my answer.
That's good to know.
So.
I do think that all three candidates could do the job. I think that Mr. Dodge coming in would have a little bit of training to do, but that's not something that we haven't done in the past. And Rogeria Medeiros Kowalczykowski really does check all the boxes. She's done just about everything that we'd ask. Seems like she could hit the ground running if hired. So I think we have a good challenge in front of us for this.
Anyone else like to offer any thoughts?
Okay, I'll go to the three. Thank you for bringing the three before us. Going down, looking at each one, I'll grab this one. This is from Mr. Kelly. He has plenty of experience. I agree with that. He's good with numbers. He's worked a lot with other departments, and he's good with getting things done. The only thing is, I'm looking for a long-term employment. And when he's saying, well, maybe 4 years and then he's done, I'm saying we're going to be back into this situation 4 years from now. I think he's still a good candidate, but as I say, I'm looking for long-term, my personal feelings. Regina, I can't pronounce her last name.
Medeiros Kowalczykowski.
Whatever, yeah.
Kowalczykowski.
Again,
Kowalczykowski.
right, she's really, seems like a good employee. She can get things done. She seems very low-keyed. And basically the same thing with Kelly. He seems low-keyed and soft. I don't know if she says she works well with others. I have to take her word for that. I mean, she seems like she's worked in a lot of different departments. And I guess she's trying to move up in her career, but then her career seems to be even shorter. And I didn't understand that. And then I look at Mr. Dodge. He has less experience in municipal work like the other two. He's a young go-getter. He's works with people. He seems to get along with people. And I think that he looks like a good problem solver and he would work well with other people. I think he's a learner. And I think whatever we ask him to do, he will learn. And he just seems to be a go-getter, and he's looking to advance. And so I think he'd be a pretty good candidate, even though he doesn't have as much experience as the other two. He has enough experience that the committee brought him before us, and thinks that he could possibly be a good candidate. Lincoln can teach him in certain things. He seems to be going to classes on other issues. And I'm certainly sure him working with people and getting things done and being a go-getter, right? He can help Lincoln in certain areas. My opinion.
I agree with all of you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I agree with Lincoln on this. This ad that we put out for this position could have been her resume, and I think she has a lot of upside. She clearly can get along. She seems to be able to get along with everyone. References were wonderful. There's just, I have this gut feeling, and as I spoke with you earlier about gut feelings, I tend to, when I dismiss them, is when I get in trouble. So my gut feeling is that she's the one, and I think that she could hit the ground running. I think she's smart, competent. The resume is exactly the way the ad is. I don't want to doubt my gut, and that's what my gut says, and I think this should be a great addition to the town of Whitman.
Mr. Chairman, also, we recently, a couple of years ago now, we hired a new accountant, and Brian and I were both on that. We did, we had some very good candidates at that time, and I think we both put a lot of weight in the former town administrator and the former assistant town administrator, their decision-making process. Brian and I think, were pretty torn over the finalists, and then said, well, at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be in the 40 hours a week, and possibly a lot longer than any of us are going to be here. But so I put a lot of weight in that, and like I said, I think we have two candidates that clearly have qualifications, and that's, I say to myself, we need somebody that also can fill the role in the absence. That Lincoln should be able to take some time, use his time. And that's what, with one of the candidates, I fear that it's going to be far too much of a learning curve. And like you said, Dan, excellent resume, but I just don't know if it's the fit right now. So I would, if you're looking for a motion, Mr. Chair, on any of these candidates, I would make a motion for Ms. Rogeria Medeiros-Kowalczykowski.
I'll second that.
Okay, well, we could do it one of two ways. We could either vote on this, and if she doesn't get 3 votes, then we do another round. Or we could go around the table and nominate somebody, or say who you're voting for, and see what happens that way. I haven't really spoken my piece yet. I again think that all three candidates would be excellent assistant town administrators. Jake has shown a willingness to learn. He's done that throughout his career. He's had a remarkable career in the Capitol Police. He's only been there for a couple of years, and he shot up to the top. He acted as chief for a while. I think in the long run, if Dan is looking for somebody that's going to be here for a long time, Jake would be a really interesting and might be a wise hire. On the other hand, we have a very lean administration. We don't have a town planner. We don't have a town, and I think Jamie ticked them off. Town planners, HR directors. We don't have people to do that. Our administrator and our assistant town administrator basically have to carry both that management and that leadership role. Both Jamie and Rogeria have a length of experience and the skills to handle those roles. They do. I was impressed by Jamie tonight, the way that Randy was. And I was impressed, I recall one of the things from his references that Lincoln had given us that said that he does not appear to be, I don't know what the exact quote was, but that he has more, basically he has more energy than he appears to have. That's basically what the line said. And I think he showed that. I think he showed that tonight. There was a life to him tonight and a humility tonight, despite the yards of experience and the things that he's done, that I liked. On the other hand, Rogeria she's worked for over 30 years in Stoughton doing all of those tasks. Gone from clerk to do all of that. So it's a tough choice for all of us.
It is.
But I don't want to vote against anybody. I think that's probably all I'm suggesting, that we just go around the room and say who we think should be the candidate. Does that make?
Would you like me to?
Withdraw?
I will withdraw my motion at this time.
Do withdraw the second?
Right, withdraw
Is
the
that an
second.
okay way to do it, you
Yeah,
guys?
that's fine.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we chose Lincoln.
So do you want to go first, or do you want to go first?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I think the bell, there
Make
it
Clark
is.
went first.
Whom the bell tolls.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Yeah.
So considering that we are trying to fill a need, a current vacancy in the town administrator's office, I think I'm going to put a lot of weight behind Lincoln's recommendation and say Ruggiero.
I agree, Rogeria.
Yeah.
I'll go with Dodge.
Okay. I would vote for Mr. Kelly.
Kelly?
Like being last?
No.
Not a good spot.
Why I want to go first.
Smart choice.
All right. So nobody else wanted to be the bad guy. Again, there are two excellent candidates. But there's something that came up that Justin said, mentor. And I heard Dan go, oof. And that was something I was worried about with one of the candidates.
Mhm.
And I think the best bet is what is the most functional team and who's going to work best. And that's why, luckily I prefaced it with how we had hired the accountant, that I put a lot of weight in that, so I will go with Ruggiero.
Okay. So that's 3 votes for Rogeria. So if someone would like to make a motion that we make it unanimous?
I will make a motion to extend an offer for contract negotiations for the Assistant Town Administrator's position to Ms. Ruggiero Maderos Kowalczykowski.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So it's unanimous.
I'd like to just say I appreciate you, the subcommittee, on their work you did. I think it was a big task to go through all those resumes, and you came up with some really good candidates, and I appreciate that.
Okay, we're 8:05. We're 10 minutes early, but I think we can deal with the COVID update. What we have is a report from the Board of Health. The Board of Health basically made 4 suggestions, and they're asking for our support. First, the Board of Health voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to require masks in all town-owned buildings, including individual workspaces, until the next Board of Health meeting on 1/25/22. And implied in that, I guess, is that the buildings remain closed, correct?
That's right. So while the Board of Health did not take a vote on that, the consensus, I was at the meeting this morning, and the consensus, and it was explicitly discussed, was that their intention, their hope would be that the buildings remain open by appointment only at least until January 25th.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there a motion to support the Board of Health's unanimous recommendation?
You're just talking about the first part of
The
it.
first one, yep. Require masks in all town-owned buildings, including individual workspaces, until the next Board of Health meeting on 1/25/22.
I'll make that motion.
By implication is that the buildings will remain closed. Okay, Justin made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Any discussion?
I'm not 100% on board with keeping the building closed. And it's my gut feeling again, and based on everything, all the research I've been doing, there's a lot of other towns that their buildings are open. And our regional school district is open. And our children are in person. And there's certainly a lot more people in those buildings than there would be in our town buildings. So I don't see our consistency in our methodology on how we're looking at, while the district is not under our direct purview, it is still part of the town. And for me, we should be consistent. If it was such a risk, those children wouldn't be there and they'd be in virtual learning. While I have the utmost respect for our town employees and I want nothing to happen to them, but we need to be consistent. So I think that the mask mandate is perfectly fine, because as you go around, when you're out in your Stop and Shops and Walmarts and the liquor stores, you're wearing a mask, but it's certainly your choice. But we have to decide about when you're in the building as an employee. So I support the masks, but I would like to see our town buildings open.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could amend the motion to just be on the mask recommendations, because I do think these are two isloos that should probably be voted separately.
Sure, that'd be fine. You move to amend?
Move to amend the motion
Is there a
to-
second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of amending the motion? So, the motion that we're dealing with now is just to have the masks until at least the 25th. Is there any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I do. If an employee is in an office by themselves, do they have to wear a mask? And why?
Well, if he's the only one he or she is the only one in the room, how's anybody gonna know?
Well, that's not the point, right. Now, we're thinking
know what I'm
of
saying?
certain,
He falls in the woods, Dan.
Yeah, right.
you gotta, I know it. I mean, you have, go around the town hall, you have the town clerk's office that has an office of her own, it's town clerk. You have the treasurer collector who has an office of their own, they can close the doors.
Does anyone ever come in the office, Dan?
In their office.
Remember the original, Randy's original motion a couple of weeks ago was to protect the infrastructure, to protect the workers. We don't want to have a snowstorm when the DPW guys are out sick.
Right.
We don't want to have it in the police department, we don't want to have it in the fire department. What this does is it gives us another 2 weeks of insurance.
Oh, true, but I'm just saying, if a person is in an office all by themselves,
Yep.
wear a
Okay.
mask.
So, like Brian said, it's continuity of a decision-making process. And I think the problem I have with this is somebody deciding their own level of comfort, basically making their own medical decision on what's safe for somebody else. If one of these people that have an office of their own are in there sneezing and coughing, and then somebody walks in,
Okay.
you're walking into those droplets, according to medical science, right?
Walking
So
in blind.
that's why I stand behind, if you're gonna induce a mask mandate, it's a universal, you're wearing it all the time.
Okay, that's a good argument.
Yep, fair enough.
Okay, any other discussion of that first motion then? All those in favor of number one?
Aye.
Okay, number two. We'll save the building staying closed until the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Because actually, the Board of Health didn't vote on that either. They
Right.
passed it on to us. The Board of Health then voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that all boards, commissions, and committees be offered two options for all meetings. One option, that all meetings are either in person and televised from the Selectmen's office, or a second option is to hold a Zoom meeting available to the public that will later be televised on WHCA. The first meeting to be determined by the chair of boards, commissions, and committees. Following meetings to be determined at the discretion of the boards, commissions, or committees as to which option they would like to take going forward. The Selectmen's meeting room is first come, first served, with priority going to the Board of Selectmen. This recommendation to be revisited at next BOH meeting on 1/25/2022. So that basically sets this, that's what we're doing now. We're saying that all public meetings have to be either televised from the Selectmen's office or sent out over Zoom. Is there a motion to accept their recommendation?
My motion is gonna be to reject. And I'm looking for, seek the second for discussion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion is to reject this motion. Okay, go ahead, Randy.
So, I think with a couple of these, you're seeing a drastic overreach, but by the Board of Health. They're getting into policy decisions and not health decisions. And determining how meetings are being met, I think, like you just said, we're gonna determine if the building's gonna open. That could influence these decisions here. So either I could amend to motion to pass over for now, or motion to reject. I just don't think it's the Board of Health's choice of how we're having meetings.
I think what they're basically, although I think what they're basically doing, Randy, is what we suggested ought to be done last week. Right?
Yeah, so
And you were there at the meeting.
if I could, I just want to make sure that I brought this subject up to them, just in order for them to be aware of what we're doing now. Right? In other words, they're having a discussion about all the COVID protocols. This is the thing that the Board of Selectmen, decided last week. This is the thing that I've been working with boards, committees, commissions to implement for the last week. I was informing them, if for no other reason than to let them know what their options are, right? Specifically for the Board of Health. They chose to make this motion and make it, but I just want to make it clear that I was informing them about what we're doing right now,
Yep.
just so that people were communicating well together, and that the Board of Health knew that this is what we're doing. If for no other reason, then that it affects them as well as the Board of Health, just to be clear.
All right, so just to be clear, then, this is your decision passed through the Board of Health?
No,
Board of Health saying that they agree with what he is.
This was
made
the
that.
discussion that was, while the Board of Selectmen did not take a decision on this, it was discussed at the last meeting, and I've been working with boards to try and make sure that whatever option they choose, that they're in compliance with the open meeting law. Because frankly, I think there was that gray area that we discussed last week, that having a number outside, you can call this number if you want to attend XYZ meeting, we're getting into a dangerous area. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm doing my part to help each board and committee and commission to make sure they're following the open meeting law. Part of that was informing the Board of Health what their specific
All right.
options are. Does that make sense?
And I would amend my motion to pass over this for right now.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do, we did give him a consensus, I think, to go in that direction.
Yeah, I'm just confused why now it's coming through the Board of Health.
I do
when we
have
kinda-
one question, Lincoln, on that is, was that approval through the governor's office when we were at the height of COVID to do these Zoom meetings? And is that still in effect?
It is through April 1st.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and my only comment on the second part is, the boards and committees, it's now coming into budget time, and you're gonna have boards all meeting, like FinCom, and we meet, they can't come in here, I mean, they're in their own room. Those are open to the public, but very few public go there. Board of Health the same way. Planning Board, usually the people who are being, if somebody's got a project or something like that, and you get some people that may reject it, but it's not a big open meeting. And what do you say about town meeting? We're gonna have a town meeting, even though it's after the date. The fact is, we're gonna have a town meeting, and we're hoping to we're set up so we can get 200 people in there, upstairs and downstairs. So basically,
Right, because effectively, if a board or committee or commission chooses to meet in person, and they're not in this room and being televised or televised very soon after, the building's closed. That decision's been made.
right.
If they're meeting in this building and they're not on television, they're not following the open meeting law. And so that's the dilemma that I'm trying to work through with boards and committees, commissions, to help them make sure that they're complying with the open meeting law.
Because if it's open to the public, doesn't make a difference how many, or if anybody comes in, it's open, it has to be open.
I mean, it's effectively, it's a consequence of the building being closed,
Yeah.
right? So,
So the motion is to pass over.
That's the motion. And we second it.
I second that
Second it.
for, exactly that reason. Yeah, it's tied in with closing the building, which we haven't voted on yet.
Why don't we, well, let's pass over it. Maybe we'll come back to it after we talk about
Right.
whether the building is open.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all those in favor of passing over for it for now,
Yeah.
but not necessarily forever. Now, remember, we follow the Board of Health. The Board of Health voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to require all town employees to be fully vaccinated with a 6-week lead time in which to comply. Compliance defined by getting first, second, or booster vaccine based on what is needed to be considered fully vaccinated, with exemptions allowed for religious or medical reasons. The Board of Selectmen will discuss and determine if those with approved exemptions will be required to test weekly at their own expense. The Board of Selectmen will determine whether to determine exemptions and requirements. Examples: A, medical, upon submittal of a signed doctor's note; B, religious, upon submittal of an affidavit signed under pains and penalties of perjury stating such reasons for exemption. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Yes.
I'm against this. This particular information is before the Supreme Court as we speak, and I think it's a bit premature for us to make a decision without hearing that decision. It should come down very quickly, and I am personally against mandates such as this, so I'll be voting no.
I'll go with Brian.
Just to say that, as an employee of the executive branch of the Commonwealth, I've been under this mandate since November, and I don't believe anyone in my department has left because of it. It was a minor inconvenience to prove we were vaccinated at the time.
Randy, you have anything to say?
Yeah. First problem, it being a policy decision that really obviously comes through us, and why it's coming through the Board of Health again really doesn't sit well with me.
Remember, it's the Board of Health that's asking us to do this. They're asking us to do this. They're recommending that we do this. They're not telling us.
Right. So, again, like Brian said, myself, double vaxxed with the booster, my family, double vaxxed with the booster. I believe in the efficacy of the shot. I believe in that it provides a personal protection. But what we know is it doesn't stop you from getting it, doesn't stop you from transmitting it, and it personally provides a level of protection. Why is this town, at this time, going to get into that when we know there's severe legal fights already out there with this that are in the courts with people with far deeper pockets than we have? Right from the federal level on down. On that fact alone, what it will cost us, why would we want to do that? It makes no sense to me. And the other part being, you know what? It's still the United States of America. And the last time I checked, you have a choice what you can do or put into your body. So I am absolutely a no.
I concur with that, and likewise, my family's all vaccinated, and it's a personal choice, and I would encourage everyone to do that, but it's up to them, not us.
No, Dan, you're still against it, even though last week you were saying that we go by the Board of Health.
Right, I agree with the Board of Health, but on this one here, I think it's a deeper issue, and I'm not about to tell somebody that you have to do something.
Okay.
Would the board consider the OSHA standard, which is either demonstrate you're vaccinated or provide a negative test weekly? Or is that still an overreach?
Problem is, getting the tests, we set for tests. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's a problem.
My solution would be for us, if we want, I think we're all on this board, by saying you don't want to mandate a vaccine,
You can recommend.
I don't think that's saying you don't see the benefit of those. And if we could come up with an incentive to incentivize employees, I'd be all for that. I do think people should get vaccinated. Obviously, it's a personal protection. You see it. The numbers are out there that vaccinated individuals are getting less sick.
Right.
You also see issues with people having reactions to the vaccine. So I understand parents that, listen,
Sure.
I was vaccinated, but I wasn't. Was I scared to get my 15-year-old daughter vaccinated? So, yeah, very. And you can see why people are hesitant. That's what I would say. So if we wanted to somehow incentivize it, I'm all for it. To mandate it, no.
I have a question. Do we know, I know it's hard with HIPAA, do we have a percentage of maybe how many of our town employees have been vaccinated through volunteer information, or is that a way to find that out? I don't know.
I haven't asked
Yeah,
because
I don't think you can,
I
really.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the reason to ask was, unless a policy decision was made that a vaccination mandate was coming. So I do not know. I've been told by our public health professionals that is HIPAA protected information, and that
That's what I
I
figured.
may not know
Yeah.
unless a policy was put in place for a mandate.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know.
Well-
Any further discussion?
What would an incentive look like? Are we talking about some sort of benefit for demonstrating you've been boosted, or?
Yeah, incentive for boosted, a day off, or, I don't know. I'm not prepared to.
Okay, no, just curious.
To list out an incentive program tonight, but I think encouragement goes a lot longer way than, forcing somebody to do something. As far, I know, town council, we had discussed this previously, that believe, and I don't want to speak for her, but that we could ask if people have been vaccinated. I don't know how you would technically do it, but I think she said you could possibly ask and see if they would disclose it. So if we wanted to try and get a percentage, we might be able to go down that avenue. And obviously, Michelle and her firm.
It seems to me if you haven't done it by now, probably you're not gonna do it. Because we've come a long way.
But, you know, I thought about this going into tonight, and I looked at the CDC guidelines. If you're vaccinated, so as if you came down with COVID now, if you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, it's a 5-day quarantine, test if you can, and then wear a mask for 5 days. That's if you're vaccinated and or unvaccinated. From a management standpoint, why would we invest the money to then force that on people? What's the benefit to the town of Whitman?
I'll say the benefit, United Airlines released a statement recently. They put a vaccine mandate in place a couple of months ago. Prior to that mandate, during the earliest, I think it was the Delta surge, they had an average of 1 employee death per day, I believe, or per week. However it is. And during this current wave, they have 3,000 employees with COVID, and not one is in the hospital. So it's if you're looking to protect employees, even if they may fight back on it, this is literally life-saving. It's their choice, but it is.
Well, that's just it. I agree with it. I mean, I think the vaccine is providing protection, absolutely. But if you don't want that, somewhere along the line, Delta Airlines is probably bottom end. It's somehow benefiting Delta Airlines. I don't see the situation to win for us.
Anybody have anything different to say? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I think it was a positive motion.
Yes.
It was a positive motion. So, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Okay, the motion goes down. So far, we've passed the first motion, we've passed over the second motion, and we've said no to the third motion. Board of Health voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to allow the Council on Aging building to be allowed to permit entrance, fogging up, to permit entrance for individual pods of up to 10 seniors at a time. Individual pods will be allowed to enter the building and partake in activities as seen fit by the COA director. Pods of 10 not to include existing staff, and all areas to be cleaned in between each pod visit or activity. Activities to maintain social distance and mask requirements at all times. This recommendation be revisited at the next BOH meeting on 1/25/22. Is there a motion to
I'll make the motion.
follow their recommendation?
I'll second the discussion.
Is there, okay, discussion?
We have the COA director in the building. I was wondering if she might want to add anything to the discussion.
It was just actually when you were just talking, I'll wait till I get to the mic, I guess. When you were just talking about the mandate and what you were just saying about the choices is kind of how I feel again about what's going on with the building being closed. The choice for the seniors to be able to come, I think, is their choice. Not everybody's going to come, but I think that the social isolation of leaving these seniors shut out of the building is a greater detriment than opening the doors and allowing them that option of whether they want to come in the building.
And die.
But they could die at home too alone.
Sure, I know.
You know what I mean? Like, we could
However,
look at it
you have a
both ways.
responsibility to protect.
sorry?
You have a responsibility to protect them, don't you? And just to say, hey, if you want to come in, it's okay. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm for this, by the way. This is fine. I'd feel a lot better if I knew that they were vaccinated before they came to you.
I can only speak to the people that willingly tell me, and I can tell you that pretty much every person that comes in that's a regular that comes in
Yeah.
has been vaccinated, has been boosted. I've booked most of the appointments myself, sent them to the clinics that we've had.
Okay.
The majority of them are done. And I understand and I respect what you're saying, but I think that, would you want to be told that you couldn't come?
I think I would take your concern for my health really seriously, and I would,
And I am
and I would appreciate it.
I am concerned. I'm not concerned, but I'm concerned that for the individuals that have no one, they live alone, they have nobody else in the home, they have no family locally, they're home alone. So to them, who may see that they're in their later years, they would take the risk of coming out and being around people and not being alone and isolated versus, being locked out and saying, nope, you can't come here anymore.
I don't know. I understand where you're coming from. I just have trouble opening
Well-
the door to people who may hurt themselves if they enter that door.
And again, I respect that, but I also think that statistically, when I look at the numbers and those graphs all the time, the lower amount of people with COVID is the senior population. I think because they're vaccinated, I think that they make their choices of where they want to go. You know what I mean? They're not all willy-nilly out there. They're making their choices. And again, this would be a choice. No one's forcing them to come to that building. It would be their choice if they want to come to the building. Just like they can choose to go out to the store, they can choose to go to the restaurant, they can choose to go wherever they want. So if they can do all those choices, why is it wrong to choose to come to the COA for them?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it seems like, I mean, the most vulnerable people in this pandemic are the people who are older and probably have other conditions. And what we're saying is, let's open it up to the most vulnerable people because, heck, they're lonely. And and they are, yeah, and I get that.
But there's all the studies, and again, respectfully, there's all the studies on people that are alone, the social isolation, what it does to their mental health, their physical health, and so forth, that is extremely detrimental as well. And again, it's a choice. No one's making anybody do anything. This is their choice if they want to come. Which, as I said to you, I just feel like these are adults, people that have lived their whole life. You know what I mean? They're not children, they're adults that have a right to choose what they'd like to do.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add that I heard a percentage today from the CDC that suggested that over 85% of that age group, it has been vaccinated twice with a booster, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know the exact amounts. I know I did have a discussion with Lincoln when this first closed down that, but here in Whitman, I want to say it was really high. It was like 90%, 95%.
Just FYI, since it was brought up, the through last Thursday in Whitman, those 65 to 74 years of age are greater than 95% fully vaccinated, and those 75 plus are 87%.
We'll give them a choice.
So I'm not saying.
Well, I'm glad you gave me that information.
Yeah.
I didn't have that information. Thank you. Thank you.
So
Like I said, I think the reason their numbers
Which-
are lower, like I said, is the majority of them
Good.
did go get vaccinated, did go get boosted, did do everything that was asked of them.
Right.
Okay.
In addition, Carl, I know it makes you nervous, but it's not like 5,000 people are going to come through my door.
Right.
It's the people that are comfortable coming, the ones that are alone, that want to get out. And again, we'll follow all the precautions. We have a tracking, we use a system called My Senior Center. Everybody that comes in scans in. It tracks who was there. We know who was at the building, who was around who. That happens always, not just during COVID, always. But they added a contact tracing component to that program during COVID. So that allows us even, you can just click on it and it tells you who was
You're making me
around.
feel better by the minute. You're doing a good job.
And we're going to clean and do all the things that need to be done.
I do have one question. That in the event that we change the status of the buildings after we're done with this, if we come up with that vote, would you like to see this particular number 4 continue even if we just open the buildings? Would you, for safety's sake, I mean, it's, you're the director, right? You know better
Again,
than anybody.
I still stand by the fact that to me it's a choice. Same as a choice if you want to get the vaccine or not. It's a choice of whether they come or not. No one's making anyone come. I can give you another example. Before this happened, we had a Christmas luncheon that originally was planned to be all in-house. Well, numbers kept going up. So, of course, I said, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You know, discussed it with different people, discussed with Dan from the Board of Health. Anyhow, I ended up putting out a call to everyone that was signed up to come, because that's the other thing. Everybody signs up for stuff. It's not, you know, like just people always dropping in. It's signed up activities. But anyhow, they all signed up, and we called them, and I said, you know, I know numbers are going up. I know everyone's got a different comfort level. If you want to come, and you can. If not, we'll do it as a grab and go. So it was about 50-50. Half of them came and enjoyed, and the other half said, you know, I'm more comfortable taking it. So we made it to go, and they took it home.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So it gave them the option. Again, it gives them the choice of what
Yeah,
they're comfortable with.
They're in control.
Okay, did we put this motion on the floor? Did someone make it? Yeah, we did.
We did.
I think
We have any more discussion of this particular motion?
So I had, you know, asked to separate the first motion from closing the buildings because I saw this motion and I thought probably a larger discussion to be had rather than closing buildings, having pods, you know, public meetings. I think that needs to be a more general thing. So I don't know whether we want to have that now and start voting or.
That's why I asked
Yeah,
whether you wanted to continue.
Well, we have a
even though-
motion on the floor.
Yeah.
We do have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, you know. 'cause
What was your opinion
so
of this?
everyone feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
What was your opinion of this motion? Was this motion okay with you?
That motion's great if the buildings are closed, but if you're going to open the buildings,
All
I
right,
think.
all right. Okay, so,
Or you just follow through an open building.
okay. So you're okay with the 10 pods and all, the 10 people pods and everything?
I said yes, but if you're going to,
Right, I got it. I
Okay.
got it. Okay, any further discussion on the pods, which may disappear in a minute, but,
So, just to be clear, so if we vote this, then she only gets 10 pods, and then we have to come back and re-vote this.
Yeah.
no.
One supersedes the other.
If we vote this, she knows what she's going to do if all the buildings remain closed. If we decide to open up the buildings again tonight,
You only gave her 10 pods.
then this,
That's why I asked, maybe it
so
would be
this
your
allows
choice
her
what
to
you
do
wanna
that. It doesn't make her do it. If you read it, it allows her to do that. So she can just do whatever the hell she wants to do. If we vote to open the buildings, she's free. She's totally free. Everybody has a free choice. Okay. All those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
So right now, you're a pod person.
okay.
So
Thank you.
Right now,
Thank you.
As we speak.
we have everybody wearing masks everywhere until 1/25/22. We are not mandating vaccines. We have passed over how we handle open meetings if the building's closed. Basically, that's based upon the buildings being closed. And we've also, we've allowed the Council on Aging to odds if we don't do anything else tonight. Okay, so what about the buildings being closed? We, when Randy suggested we close them for a week until tonight, it was going to be our discussion tonight about whether to keep it going or not. It sounds like the Board of Health is perfectly comfortable with the buildings being closed until the 25th, when the next meeting happens. If the buildings are closed, pods are in, and open meetings happen either on television or by Zoom.
I have a question for Lincoln. Do you know offhand if, all, other than the Board of Selectmen's meetings, you have Finance Committee is an open meeting, Board of Health open meeting, the DPW Commissioner's open meeting, all the other boards and committees, open meetings. How many have done Zoom
Recently, or
at all
over
during
the
this whole?
over the course of the pandemic? I believe every single committee, commission, board had at one point or another. I believe.
I don't think the Cultural Council did.
Perhaps the Cultural Council didn't because they
didn't have.
Library
they weren't
trustees,
meeting.
they open.
Library trustees certainly had a meeting on Zoom.
If I go on the website, the Whitman Hanson cable access website, I can find all those meetings.
I believe so. I believe there's certainly, some of this happened before I was here. So I can't tell with absolute certainty that every single board, committee, commission did it on Zoom and filmed.
The
I believe everyone did.
assessors preferred to meet outside. The library trustees
Yeah.
mixed, depending on the weather.
But the other piece of that too is that they wouldn't necessarily need to be on television. The open meeting law simply requires that the public have some meaningful access to the meeting. So that can mean that you have a Zoom meeting that the public can access in real time, but that it is never on television.
Okay,
So
so,
that complies with the open meeting law.
so when they file a, what do I call it? When they're gonna have a meeting, like on our town website, then the Zoom information is there.
Correct.
Okay.
Would be in the agenda.
And the, right,
And that's what I've been working with boards, committees, commissions to do, who have chosen to meet. So for example, tonight, the Department of Public Works chose to meet on Zoom. So,
so, right, so if I go on the town website and see their posting, I can click onto it, there should be an agenda there with the Zoom entrance.
that is correct.
Okay,
I went on YouTube briefly before I came here, and was it the Cultural Council they had?
They had a meeting
There was a
yesterday.
Zoom meeting there
They
from
did-
them.
They had a meeting last
And
night.
the
on Zoom.
historical chairman was in attendance. So that was the only one I saw, since we've been talking about this.
Yeah, Cultural Council had a meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals Chair chose to postpone two hearings. The Council on Aging chose to postpone a meeting, the Board of Library Trustees chose to postpone a meeting, but some have chosen to be on Zoom.
oh, good, okay, good.
What do you want to do, folks?
I have a question for Lincoln before we start going. You have the demographic vaccination information in front of you.
I do.
Above 18-year-olds, so excluding the people who are in the schools right now, what's the lowest vaccination percentage for a demographic group?
Those between ages 20 and 29 are at 55%.
55? Okay. Does it progressively get higher as you move up the age bracket?
We get smarter?
I imagine.
Yes, except it drops once you go past 74 for some reason. Otherwise, yes.
Okay. And then, to your knowledge, are other towns by appointment only, or are we kind of alone?
I believe we are the only one that I went out and did a poll, went out and spoke with some colleagues. No other town that I can find is open by appointment only. Many towns are doing some variation of mask mandates, various other restrictions, but no other town that I can see on the South Shore is only open by appointment.
Thanks.
Right, because my wife says that, like, she'll go to the Hanson Library, it's open, masks, not allow so many people.
Correct.
So I know other towns, their buildings are open. We're the,
Right.
one of the few towns that are keeping it closed.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to share that I have spoken with quite a few employees and citizens about this matter in the last few days. And by and large, I'd say almost unanimously, they're all against the buildings being closed. And I know, the public probably, because they want to come in and pay a bill and they don't want to use the website, I get all that. What matters more to me is the employees. And I have not had one employee tell me that we should be closed. So, take that for what it's worth, but you want your employees to be happy but safe. To me, if we're the only ones that are like this, are we being too cautious? If that's possible, I don't know. But, the rest of the South Shore is open. Walmart is open. Stop and Shop is open. Oyster State Job Lot. I mean, the list goes on and on. Every restaurant is open. I mean,
What are the COVID statistics for Plymouth County?
I don't have that information.
Chief?
I don't have those in front of me tonight, I'm sorry, for the whole county. But can try and find them pretty quickly.
You know, if we have we passed a mask requirement for everybody in the building to be masked.
Till the
When
25th,
they're in their office by themselves.
right, till the 25th.
Then maybe it's not as, maybe it'd be okay to have the buildings open then.
That's kind of my thinking, is we've taken all the other precautions, if everyone's wearing a mask,
Yeah.
including members of the public when they come in. We're encouraging vaccination, if not
Yes.
mandating it.
Yes.
Procuring tests to hopefully distribute again. We'll talk about that later. I think we're doing all the right steps that I'd feel comfortable reopening.
I believe it was the right step when Randy suggested to protect our infrastructure to close the
Absolutely.
buildings.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was only a week ago.
Yep.
That was only a week ago. Is the COVID situation better within the past week?
That was
Uh,
before the holidays, wasn't it?
What?
It was 2 weeks, it was,
2 weeks ago?
Every
we closed
Yeah, we
So-
started the closure on the 27th of December.
3 weeks ago,
Okay.
yeah.
So I was happy when you did that.
Yeah.
Maybe now with this, we can relax it, although I haven't seen any information about this Omicron variant or COVID itself lightening up. On the contrary, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. What's the positivity rate in Massachusetts of people who are tested?
Yeah.
38%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about
5, 8.
3%? If we
Yeah.
got down to 3%, we could open the building, we could
Yeah.
have
I
open
think-
meetings.
I think this variant is a lot different than when we were talking about 3.5, 8%. This is a highly infectious, but minimal
I-
symptoms.
Yeah, I know, except it's,
And I listened to the Senate hearings today, and even the CDC and chairman of the National Institute for Health suggested that this, by the end of January, is probably going to be where it really trickles.
okay, good, but we've heard that before.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely, I stand by, I think this board made a fantastic decision Christmas week, slow week, and the following week, New Year's week. I absolutely think that was I stand behind that 100%. And I think we saw that it did absolutely help the infrastructure, not only just in Town Hall, but some other buildings. That being said, I go back to this continuity piece of the decisions we're making. Are they universal? Are you applying universal protections? Now, for everything the Council on Aging Director just said, I agree with that. The risk is worth the reward there, and the individual is willing to accept what risks they have. That being said, we just voted that she can have 10 people and plus staff members. At this point, it's starting to be, the continuity of this is really starting to shift. I know personally, I attended on 2 different days last week, meetings at the school. The school kids are going every single day with the mask, that there's protection. I think it's probably time now. I think we've had a good time period to see how Omicron is going to affect us. And I'd absolutely be willing to open back up, with the mask mandate in place. And hopefully things start dropping, we can take that off soon too. But right now, I think that's the front line of protection that appears to be working, not only in school, but the Council on Aging Director is saying that that's going to be good enough for her, and the DESI and the school district is saying that's good enough for them. So, you know what? Maybe that's our next step, and we're open back up.
So since you moved to close this, would you like to move to open this up again?
I would make a motion to open town buildings. So my only concern is if we say now tomorrow,
May I suggest that we make it Monday?
Monday's a holiday.
Perhaps, I'm sorry, not, Monday's a holiday.
today's Tuesday. I think we can get open by Thursday.
Thursday, let's say
Yeah.
Thursday.
13th.
Let's say
Obviously, one day could be a little tough.
Let's say Thursday.
Open all buildings to capacity on Thursday, the 13th.
And then you can do what you'd like to do. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, and I want to just make a statement. I think that if we do that, department heads need to be aware of their employees and remind them, if they have any signs of a sniffle, a runny nose, a cough, a sore throat, stay home. Do not possibly infect your fellow employees. It's very important. I know, say, well, I don't like to miss work. Well, I'm sorry. Better that you miss that 1 day or 2 days or whatever than to infect a lot of people.
Board of Selectmen's not going to be mad at you.
Right, exactly.
Indeed.
No one will be.
Right.
That's all.
Okay, he made a motion. Was there a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good work. That's it. Motion to adjourn is in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Open on Thursday, right? Okay.
Take it.
Okay.
What's that, Tarmac on,
I'm not gonna write down.